Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with the first webinar of the WiderAdvance Facility. Let me introduce to Gabriela Lobas from Europa Media, who is running the first part of these webinars and the Mentimeter section. And I am Alicia Boto, from the Spanish Research Council in the Canary Islands, the Instituto de Productos Naturales en Agrobiología. And I will tell about financing instruments, platform, and citizen engagement. So let's start with the first introduction, which will be practical and tell us about real life cases. Thank you. So thank you, Gabriel.
All right.
You are on.
All right, thank you very much. I hope it's all good and you see the full screen.
Yes.
So as Alicia said, I'm trying in the first part to set the scene a little bit and trying to give you a few ideas. What is that you may be interested in, which tool, which platform, which service, of course, that the European Commission is also then, of course, helping us with. And then Alicia will be introducing you all of these in detail. I'm trying to use, of course, practical examples. But again, also in the very beginning, of course, I'm trying to set the scene. What exactly, of course, is then knowledge valorization and why it is important and what kind of course, things you could be using that the European Union is helping us with. It's also a little bit of engaging presentation that I hope it will be working very well. We are using Mentimeter, which means that it allows me to ask a few questions, and then it allows you, of course, then also to give your feedback and to give your responses. But for that, you need to use your phone. And on the phone, you have to put in menti.com. And then you see on the top of the screen, actually, that there is a code that you will have to use, the 16535937. That is the code. And then, of course, it will be repeated because there will be slides, of course, where you do not have to do anything. And then there will be slides, of course, where the mentee will be waiting for the participants, of course, to join and then give me some responses. So it is just making it more engaging and a little bit more playful. So hopefully you will like the process. So to start, yes, this is the agenda. So we will have the first 3 sections about the valorization policy, the examples, practical, of course, scenarios, and then the guidance section first. Then we will take a short break. And then afterwards, Alicia will be introducing all of these programs, initiatives, services, and platforms. And she will also say a few things about citizen engagement. Just to make sure that, of course, you see the kind of the logic. The second section of these presentations, the examples, the use of the tools, will give you some ideas, basically some practical scenarios. But then afterwards, the 4, the 5, and the 6 section will be introducing you, of course, all of the details, and then it will help you, of course, how to get much more information about all of these things. So to start with, the valorization itself, why is valorization policy needed, of course, in the first place? Now, maybe let's go back to the beginning with this. If you remember when Horizon Europe was put together by the European Commission, then there were 2 things that the European Commission all the time repeated in the webinars, in the publications, and so on, that researchers should become innovators and they should learn how to transform the knowledge that they generate into useful innovations. The whole pillar 2, basically, of Horizon Europe is also about transforming that knowledge into something useful as an innovation. And that is why, of course, also from the very beginning of Horizon Europe, the European Commission started to put together these valorization tools to help, of course, the researchers to understand what this process is in the first place. And of course, also making these tools and platforms and these support mechanisms for us also to understand and also for us to be able to support the researchers, of course, in the process. So knowledge valorization is basically a process where we're trying to create, of course, some kind of a value out of the knowledge that is, of course, useful for the society somehow. So the research projects, of course, generate a lot of different research results. And we know, of course, that some of these may become, of course, commercial products. Some of these may be turning into a business. That is kind of course, all good. But then how? What is the process? How it can be done? What are the steps? And of course, how the researchers can be supported in putting together all of these steps in the process. That is basically the topic of this webinar. The knowledge valorization process, of course, is having a lot of different steps, and of course the Commission is trying to help us with. This valorization policy, of course, is the basis for a lot of things. Everything, of course, goes back to some kind of a policy of the European Commission. So this valorization policy, of course, is the starting point for you to understand what the Commission means under knowledge valorization, of course, and then how they support. We will show you a few additional guidelines, of course, that are a little bit more practical than this. But in principle, right, the knowledge valorization tries to translate, again, the research and the innovation-related results into societal benefits and also into economic benefits. Now, the Commission, of course, highlights as well that we need to make sure that the promising result is protected, of course, first when we start any kind of valorization. But again, out of the promising result, a new business can be created, of course, a spin-off or a startup, or of course, we can transform it into a commercial product. We can also, of course, protect it and then license it out. So these are kind of the basic things that the Commission, of course, is trying to pursue, going towards commercialization and also going towards then entrepreneurship. So yes, these are probably things that you heard about, but then anything else that you can think of? Now it would be then the time, of course, then to go to menti.com and use this code 16535937. Let's see what else you think valorization could contain. Hope it works for you. Waste resource. Right. So you meaning, okay, transforming waste into something useful. I mean, also besides the fact that we could create a company, we could, of course, go towards commercialization. What else you can imagine that valorization includes? What kind of other knowledge valorization approaches or routes can you imagine? It's a difficult first question, I know. Co-creation, very good. Absolutely. That could be, of course, the part of it. With the industry, indeed. So academia, industrial collaboration, absolutely. That is something, of course, that is very interesting for the Commission to see. Just if you imagine that in your research projects, you could do joint publications with the industry, that always has, of course, a higher value, potential higher impact as well. It's more interesting, of course, also for the journals themselves as well. Digital valorization, I suppose, yeah, that could be also a digital way, of course, to do things. Anyone else would like to share any other ideas? Okay, stakeholder involvement, the engagement indeed of the stakeholders. If you want to create any kind of benefit for the society, right, we need to make sure, of course, that there is a proper stakeholder involvement involved. They help you, of course, to, if you remember the 3 stages, co-design, co-creation, and then co-assessment. These are the three stages, and in all of these three stages, of course, the stakeholder involvement could be very crucial, of course, to generate that innovation that is useful for them, right? Also, curriculum integration, very good. That is, of course, what you then call a knowledge advancement, because, of course, the knowledge that you create could be advancing, of course, then the scientific community. And of course, the research that is within, of course, that field, but also you can use it, right, for the educational and training purposes. So curriculum integration, indeed, that is a very good also additional valorization route. Absolutely. All right, very good. Thank you so much. And then as a summary, indeed, research results could be used in industry-academia collaboration, in joint research projects, or in mobility scheme. That is not super typical, of course, for our research projects to do mobility schemes, but absolutely, of course, Horizon Europe supports the staff exchanges as well, and any other, of course, even a secondment, for example, of the different researchers also within the industry and also within academia, so vice versa. And of course, there could be the knowledge advancements as well in research and in education and training as well. Those are really important routes. Then the standardization, of course, is getting more and more important also for the European Commission. We know standards is in all areas of our life, of course. And then we could do a lot of different things related to standardization. And there are important platforms and tools where the Commission, of course, is helping us also to do this properly. And then the engagement of the stakeholders, of course, can be also turned into the engagement of the citizens, right? And when you do this engagement with the citizens, and then you do co-creation activities with the citizens, that is what we call citizen science. And of course, there are many different levels also within citizen science, because what we want to achieve, of course, at the end of the day is to change the behavior of the citizens. And then if you achieve that, then you need, of course, the highest level of the engagement of the citizens into the research activities. That is not that easy, of course, to implement, and that is potentially also rare that different projects, of course, do that. But if you think about mission projects, right, now the Commission has these 5 missions, of course, then definitely this is a must, of course, to have citizen science related activities. Now, valorization itself is not really in the grant agreement. The Commission is using a different word for almost the same thing. In the Horizon Europe grant agreement, you have an exploitation obligation, right? Valorization would be turning that result into something useful as an innovation for the society. Exploitation is generally the use of the results. That is the obligation that you have in the grant agreement. It has a beautiful name, and also it has a timeline. So who remembers? Is it called nice effort obligation and it's valid for 5 years? It is called best effort obligation and it is valid for 4 years after the end of the project, or it is called significant effort obligation and it is valid for 3 years. Which one is it? Anyone else wants to guess? Well, yes, absolutely. It's called the best effort obligation, which means that anyone signing a Horizon Europe grant agreement needs to invest its best effort, their best effort, in order to use the results. And the use of the results can be direct, meaning your organization internally, of course, uses the results, or it can be indirect, which means that there's a third party involved as well into the exploitation process. And that involves potentially licensing most of the time, or it can also involve then the transfer of the result to that third party who will then do the exploitation. Both of these are fine for the European Commission. There are different routes. Now, the exploitation obligation itself, right, in the grant agreement is explained in the annotated grant agreement. if you have read this beautiful document, it also has a detailed explanation on the specific rules, which is within the Annex 5 of your grant agreement, right? That is what is very specific to Horizon Europe as a program. And then all of the key obligations, of course, in Horizon Europe would be in this Annex 5, and there's a specific section also on IPR, right, an article on that. And of course, Annex 5 in the annotated grant agreement is explaining all of these obligations. That is definitely something, of course, that we recommend you to read at least once. Now, one of the most important things is to highlight here is that after the end of the project, you need to do exploitation, right? You have 1 year from the European Commission perspective when they are coming back and, of course, checking up on you, because if you promised successful exploitation within 1 year after the end of the project, then the European Commission, of course, wants to see the report on that successful exploitation. If for any specific reason you do not succeed, you then have to use the Horizon Results platform. The Horizon Results platform is one of those key platforms that the European Commission established. It makes it possible for us to disseminate a little bit more widely, of course, all of the results, but also the platform has been created to support the valorization and the exploitation activities. Because when you upload a result to the Horizon Results platform, you can also highlight what kind of exploitation routes it should, of course, then seek, what kind of collaboration, of course, you are looking for. Would it be that market, of course, commercial? Would it be policy related, or would it be further research? And then from that perspective, if others are looking for interesting results, then they will see that you would like to continue the research with that result, or that result should support the policy making and the decision making, or that result that you upload would be then, of course, seeking for business marketing, of course, commercial, then collaboration. So that is, of course, something that is there. And then if within 1 year after the end of the project, you do not succeed with your exploitation plans, the Commission may ask you to upload the results to the platform itself. It is, of course, then giving you also additional obligations to protect. But if you develop your result, of course, you can decide, of course, how you want to protect it. And afterwards, of course, do the exploitation itself. If you have a joint result, then, of course, jointly you have to agree with the other owners of the result how you want to do the exploitation. And, of course, how you protect it. Now, the exploitation options can be, of course, commercial and non-commercial as well. Right? No one is telling us, of course, that we have to generate a lot of money in all of these projects. But of course, the valorization also supports that we put together, of course, results which will benefit the society, but also it generates income within, of course, the process itself. We need money also to maintain a lot of additional results as well. So, of course, the business perspective, the business validation perspective, of course, needs to be there, of course, from the very beginning. Now, one important thing is that when you put together your proposal, right, then you start thinking about all of the exploitation options. When you fill in, of course, the Horizon Europe proposal template, then there is a section where you have to describe your exploitation plans. That is when you start thinking also about the knowledge valorization, of course, and that is when hopefully you will be seeking also support from some of those tools and platforms. The recommendation is, of course, and one of the key points is do not wait for the result to be available, because we do not start the valorization or do not start the exploitation when the result is already there, but we actually start, of course, a lot earlier. Just if you think about the stakeholder involvement, just if you think about citizen science, just if you think about market research and so on, that is something that you start a lot earlier, of course, than when the result, of course, is available. So try to think through, of course, all of the valorization options, all of the exploitation routes from the very beginning. And if you have the possibility, involve your technology transfer office in the proposal writing phase, not when the project is funded, not when the project is implemented and the result is there, but from the very beginning, they can help a lot, of course. And also, quite a few of the platforms and quite a few of the tools that Alicia will be introducing in a lot more details will be there for you, of course, then to use also and consider all of the options. We talked about the advancement of the knowledge, of course, that could be initiation of the new projects or use in education and training. We talked about standardization, and we show you, of course, how then, of course, the platforms and the tools can help you or to validate an existing standard or to contribute to a standardization process that is running, or to even contribute to a completely new standard, of course, that could be then again benefiting the society. All of these are possible. The evidence-based decision-making and policy-making is a must, of course, for all of the also widening and also the Pillar 2 project for sure, because we need to make sure that also we support the society in a way that we help the decision makers and the policy makers to put together, of course, a better environment for the citizens. So always think about policy briefs or policy recommendations or any additional, toolkits, guidance, things, roadmaps, because all of these are supporting the policymakers and the decision makers. And then, of course, going towards the commercialization and the entrepreneurship, we can, of course, setting up a new business. We can sell, of course, the result itself. We can transfer the result to someone else, and we can do the licensing, as mentioned as well earlier. The commercialization and the entrepreneurship, of course, are key. There is a really interesting policy brief from an Interreg Europe. I think Alicia will show this as well. But this policy brief is introducing some practical things and also some additional, of course, sources, tools, and platforms that could be helping you to understand much better than, again, the steps. So the commercialization of the research results, including, of course, then the technology transfer office, what kind of invention, of course, you have, how you would be protected with patenting, with the, of course, any other utility model, for example, or some other, of course, IP possibilities. Selling, licensing, spin-off, startups, joint ventures, all of these, of course, are considerations. Now, the rationale from the same policy brief, of course, basically, if you check from the very beginning, the academic research going towards the commercialization route, the European Commission in all of these stages would have for you some kind of a tool, of course, that you could use, or some kind of funding program that is helping you to go to the next step. So from technology readiness level 0, of course, towards the 9, would it be an ERC grant, a proof of concept grant? Would it be, of course, a collaborative project for low TRL levels or for high TRL levels? And then going through, of course, the European Innovation Council specific schemes that, again, Alicia will introduce. There will be different options also for investing, also for financing. And also there will be tools and platforms that help you to go through, of course, the whole process. And again, transforming your original idea, the knowledge, of course, that you generate into something useful as an innovation. Now, what is an important first step? Let's just go back, just making sure that, of course, you are still with me. What would be an important first step in the valorization process? Promotion of the project results, looking for collaborators, and protection of the project result. Which one would be one of the key first steps? Okay, that was easy, I see. Absolutely, right? Protection is the first thing. There are many different options. And again, there are also tools, of course, that can help you. What you see, the link is the European Patent Office. They put together an IP teaching kit that is giving you all of the basic knowledge on IP with really good examples, with easily understandable, of course, procedures. It's a good e-learning material, basically, that could help a lot the researchers, of course, to understand. Then, of course, we will introduce also the IP help desk, of course, that the European Commission is also maintaining. Then you can have also additional, of course, knowledge sources for all of the different protection measures. it is important that, of course, you try to seek also first help and advice within your institution. So again, the technology transfer office or the intellectual property right managers, business advisors, all of these kind of course, functions, if you have them within the institution, or the legal department, if you have them, then definitely, of course, they can help you with all of these to understand. Because indeed, for an invention, it is not the same if you go towards a patent or you go towards a utility model. There are many different things, how expensive they are, what is the region, of course, that you can cover, is there a novelty assessment? There could be, of course, a lot of considerations for all of these different things. And would it be then important to go for a patent? Or maybe rather you would actually consider to go for a trade secret or some kind of an other solution, because maybe you have to wait for a patent, of course, to be registered maybe for 3 years, maybe for 5 years. I even heard an example when they waited for 10 years to have all of the regions covered before they could enter actually the specific market. So sometimes it could be, of course, complicated, but indeed with a patent, also it can cost more, but definitely then there is a novelty assessment and there is, of course, whole region, of course, that you can then have the protection covered. While, for example, in utility models, that is normally country level. So depending on, of course, what is the result and what you want to achieve with that, and of course, what was then the original assessment, right, before actually you had the result ready, and what was the stakeholder engagement, who said, of course, that they would use the result, it would be useful for them. This is what exactly, of course, they want to validate, of course, your idea originally, and then, of course, to move on to the next stage and actually do the research, develop the results. And of course, afterwards, you indeed have to think about, of course, the whole protection mechanism. Also for copyright, right? Indeed, the copyright is kind of automatic, but we should never forget that, of course, we have to protect ourselves with the proper license. So if you don't know what a license is and how to choose one and so on, then there's also chooselicense.com website that can help you, of course, to select the proper one. If you know that you want to go for open license, you could also then just go to Creative Commons website. Of course, this is a set of open licenses that the European Commission also knows and of course accepts and uses as well. And then, of course, both of these websites would be guiding you through a set of steps. And then they would tell you, yes, this is the license, of course, that you need. So it's not like there's a lot of information, but of course, the tool itself online can be helping you, of course, to select the proper license. Also, there will be some templates potentially available, of course. When you work with others, of course, in European projects, you need to make sure, of course, that you have some kind of a plan and you are able also to assess, right, that exploitable result. I suppose the key exploitable result is an expression that you heard a lot because the Commission wants you, of course, to list in the proposal the key exploitable results. Would it be a research publication? Would it be a design? Would it be a software code? Would it be some kind of another thing, of course, that you put together, an invention and technology? And then you have a plan, of course, in the very beginning. For each of these key results, you have, of course, some kind of an action that has to be taken. Would it be, of course, discuss the protection mechanism? Would it be that you need validation? Maybe you need a market research to be done. Maybe you have to discuss ownership from the very beginning just to make sure, of course, that the plans could be done properly. And then, of course, what has to be done exactly, by whom, when. So there are these really specific action plans, of course, when you implement the project to make sure that all of the steps, of course, are followed. And then the assessment, of course, for the partner that is responsible for the key exploitable result, and it could be, of course, more partners together when it is jointly owned. It is recommendable to have some kind of a template to make, a comparative assessment as well. There will be also good examples from all of those platforms, right? If you noted in valorization platform of the Commission, then there will be, of course, examples for the descriptions of those results. But this is definitely important to think about the description, who will be creating, of course. Is there any background, of course, that is needed for the successful use, of course, of that result? Any intended exploitation? Is there any conflict in between the joint owners, for example, how they would like to exploit? And then who's going to be responsible, of course, for protection and what exactly will be the protection route? So there will be all of these details, of course, that you have to discuss. Now, if we go into practice, then I would like 2 stories to be discussed with you. Let's start with Jan, who's a biomedical researcher. He's based in the Czech Republic, and he's a researcher for biomedical technologies. Now, what he has as a challenge is that he would like to move from an early stage research result, maybe you actually face the same issue, he would like to go toward the market and the clinical application, but he definitely wants to make sure, right, that actually this societal benefit is fully there, of course, right, towards green digital transition. But from his perspective, of course, then the proper use, of course, of his research results within biomedicine is his starting point, of course. He's developing a new biosensor for early cancer rate detection. And then the technology is in a proof of concept phase. This means that it's around technology readiness level 3 and 4. And he needs to support to advance, of course, to move beyond this stage specifically towards the clinical validation and also towards the industry uptake. So we have Jan as one of the stories. And then we have Maria. Maria Georgiou, she's an IT programmer. She's based in Cyprus, and she's developing decision support tools. She's working in the field of sustainability, so any kind of actually specific field she could be working in, of course, as an IT expert. And she's then developing different tools on the technology in the readiness level 7, 8, so very close to the market. And her challenge is to turning a very specific project deliverable, a decision support tool, into a product that will be then, of course, launched on the market. So the starting point is that there is this AI-based tool to optimize the irrigation in agriculture. It's fully functional. It has been tested in the pilot projects within the Horizon Europe project. It is around at 7, 8 level, but it is not yet commercialized. And it hasn't been yet adopted by any of the specific municipalities or even companies, of course, to use this specific AI-based decision support tool. So the challenge is, of course, to move forward from this. Now, if we go back to Jan, then of course we could kind of try to put together a roadmap for him. What are the steps? What kind of things, of course, he could use? And that is something recommendable to consider from the very beginning, right? From the proposal writing perspective. Try, of course, to talk also to your TT office from the very beginning, as I said, and then try to see, okay, how? Right? What can be done? So the first thing is to look around, of course. So Jan should check the knowledge valorization platform that the Commission has set up, because there are a lot of guidance materials there and also a lot of good practices. And then he could explore similar cases, of course, and the guides as well. And then also the TTO, of course, could help to assess the market potential and see, of course, if this is the good idea, of course, and this is the actual good of course, result that he's planning to put together for the biomedical field. And then, of course, when the result is already in that stage, then definitely the protection is important. So first, definitely contacting the IP help desk could be, of course, a really good thing, because he could get free advice on the IP strategy. Is it patentable in the first place? And then he could get, of course, free advice for that. Then also, if the patenting is something, of course, that he considers very carefully, then it could be also that the national patent offices help, or there's also this SME fund. If he considers potentially to develop a startup or a spin-off, or he's working at a company and not specifically a research organization, then of course this SME fund could be also covering some IP cost, which is of course a very useful thing as well, because also protection, it's not necessarily funded by the project, or not all of the stages, of course, of the protection. So let's see, of course, what can be done, what other financial sources are available to have this step also taken care of. Then raising visibility and attracting interest, of course, is super important. So also the Horizon Result platform could be used. Again, attracting some industry interest, also investors, or maybe again, because it's in early stage, right, of the research, then the Horizon Results platform also could help, of course, to seek for further research collaborations. Also, the booster itself, right? It can help to put together a proper exploitation strategy free of charge. It could help, of course, with communication dissemination as well, if the whole scope, is to raise the visibility. So definitely that's important. Then, of course, the research needs to move on, right, towards, again, the clinical validation. So then we need to advance the technology. Then the European Innovation Council grants are there, of course, or the Pathfinder or the transition also, of course, or even national grants, of course. And then Jan could apply for further research, of course. And then he could check as well some investment opportunities, but again, the investors would be potentially also interested, of course, in all of these results when already it is on higher TRL level. But there are also other kind of investors who could be interested. But mostly, of course, funding, that would be, of course, a route to move on in the first place. And of course, there are still public-private partnerships, of course, that he could engage with. There are all of these innovation partnerships as well, of course, that the European Commission is having there, but there are also a lot of interesting specific partnerships that are running by themselves, or even medical cluster, biomedical clusters specifically, where he could, of course, engage with others, and then, of course, continue the research, of course, and the advancement of the technology together also with other companies. The valorization platform could give you ideas, of course, how others have done it, but also some of the clusters and some of the partnerships would be also available there. And then exploring the standardization itself is useful, of course, to see if there's any other opportunity within also the health tech, of course. And then Sense Analytic could be, of course, giving the guidance to tools, and also then, of course, then support when the time comes to implement actually this particular part. What else? Definitely plan the market entry, right? Starting exploring the pathways. Also on a regulatory level, legal level, of course, it is important to understand the conditions, and also then potentially connect with the incubators or the accelerators for further development, because that's the part, of course, with, for example, the EIT, right? The EIT Health also is offering some acceleration and incubation programs, and that would be something very useful, of course, to Jan to potentially also connect. So he could check, of course, the check node of the EIT Health and see, of course, what are the opportunities. Again, there are a lot of things available, but you have to look around and see, of course, where you can find the support. Now that was Jan, but the question is, how about Maria? What do you think Maria should do differently? Her result is a decision support tool, an AI tool, and definitely Maria has already the result on a technology readiness level of 7-8, so very close to the market. So any ideas what else she could consider, or how she could consider the valorization maybe in a different way, maybe with different steps? Interesting. Okay. We could think about that, yeah. Also demonstrate, right? To even potential investors, right? Why not? The level is higher, so scale up should be considered, and access to market. Absolutely, very good. So it's one thing, right, that you try to understand the value to the society, of course, of your result. But another thing is indeed the scale up potential. Because what if, right, the high value is there, it would be super beneficial for the society, but there's no scale up potential because you haven't thought about that, and you haven't made sure that there will be enough users and it would be widely, of course, used. Then unfortunately you have a really good result that is not used because there's no scale up potential. Or, for example, there could be a really interesting health related that I was actually in one of the webinars that we did together with Unico, right, the partner within the WiderAdvance Facility project. They mentioned an interesting example when they were putting together this medical device that was helping to I think, identify, if I remember correctly, the pancreas cancer. And it turned out that there is an amazing, of course, value for the technology itself, but there are only 2 companies in the world who could be actually manufacturing or putting together, of course, the device itself in question. So there was a really niche market, of course, to target potentially with that particular technology. So it's kind of interesting, of course, then what kind of steps you have to take in which phase of the research, of course. Build up the exploitation and the dissemination plan for sure, absolutely. European Innovation Council tools, yeah, that could be also very interesting, because when you have a European Innovation Council project on a high tier level, then of course there will be also a business advisor next to you, right, helping. The experts of the Enterprise Europe Network will be helping you a lot, of course, to put together properly, of course, that business planning. Regulatory compliance, absolutely. All of these are really good ideas. Thank you so much. So Maria indeed has to analyze the societal and the commercial potential as well. The knowledge valorization platform can also give good ideas for the real world adoption pathways. I mean, what others have done and what kind of challenges they face. Because this is an AI tool, right, for the agricultural sectors, it is really important to make sure that really the demand is there, right? So talking to the farmers and the municipalities who should be adopting, of course, this decision support tool is a must, of course, as a starting point. Then for sure, refining the IP, the legal groundwork, as you said, all of the, of course, the compliance issues. The European IP holders can help again with all of their free advice that is there. And again, the SME fund could be also helping, of course, to understand that when you apply for trademarks and copyright protection, then of course this fund can help you to put together these things. Then promoting the tool, of course, you can use the results platform again, or the results booster. But the booster would be then not necessarily helping you with the visibility, right? But it would be helping you with a go-to-market strategy. So what are those final steps, of course, that you need to take for the business development, of course, of that AI tool? And then you need to make sure, of course, that you tailor potentially in the very final stages the result to the market needs. And then you can identify, of course, very specific standards, pseudoscience and ALAC, and also you could be contributing, of course, to the further development of these standards, but also open innovation, right? What is that? It's basically then the open collaboration, right? With the key stakeholders who could be also the users, right? To get the user feedback, but also it could be specific authorities or even, of course, those municipalities to understand, of course, how the result has to be tailored to their needs. Different countries, different requirements, different regulations, different, of course, compliance. All of these, of course, could be tailored very specifically within a decision support tool. So all of that then are final stages. Then, of course, scaling up. Now, what can be done? There are a lot of interesting, of course, also then available tools out there, of course, within the EU that could be helping with these very, very final stages. The digital innovation hubs or the European Living Labs absolutely could be supporting the testing and then make sure that there can be a proper scale up, of course, in the different countries. You can also, of course, or Maria, sorry, can also collaborate with a lot of different startups, of course, and SMEs who could be also then maybe get a license also and then to integrate into their own solution, of course, because they are working very much, of course, in the agriculture sector for a long time. So they could be using, of course, that specific tool within their own business, of course, portfolio. Why not? Also, you could be using, of course, the University Industry Innovation Network, the UIIN schemes, of course. They are giving you a lot of information, connections, of course, networking, tools, guidances, of course, how the research organizations, how the universities could be successfully collaborating with the industry to, of course, further advance their innovation. So that your, of course, IP is not sitting on the shelf, right, at the university, but actually it is properly used with the help, of course, of the university industry collaboration itself. So it's super useful, of course, to check that as well. And then let's not forget the innovation radar. The innovation radar, of course, there are experts behind. When you go to the innovation radar and you upload your solution, then it will be thoroughly checked, and it will be based on the GRC methodology, of course, analyzed what kind of innovation potential your solution has. And then you basically have it validated, right, by the experts as well. And then they will tell you if you need business marketing expertise, you need an investor, you are almost fully ready with everything, or no, you are not fully ready. Maybe you need another set of potential final research activities as well to make sure that everything is, of course, properly done. So the innovation radar is super useful, and that is also a platform that the investors are checking out, of course, to see something super interesting for them to invest in. You can also, of course, seek for public and other type of private support as well. There are procurement schemes. There will be, of course, some other cascade funding available via the Horizon Europe projects as well, but also the Enterprise Europe Network. Again, the European Institute for Innovation and Technology, right? The EIT KICS, the knowledge innovation communities could be helping. Would it be the digital, or would it be the EIT House, of course, in the case of Maria as well? Or case of Jan, right? All of these, of course, then could be helpful. In summary, there are different steps, of course, that you have to take, and this would be kind of true also for Maria, also for Jan. And the EU resources, again, there are quite a few of these that also Alicia will introduce in more detail. But I don't want to spend a lot more time because I will be running out of that. So if there's anything else that Maria or Jan should consider, I will move on now to the next one, just to peek in to what Alisa will be introducing you, because citizen engagement and, of course, stakeholder engagement is a key thing. So again, Alicia will be introducing you all of those platforms, and of course also the theoretical background from the Commission perspective on citizen engagement. It will be in the last section. But also Jan and also Maria could be considering the engagement in the co-creation phase and also in the validation phase as well. There are different tools, again, that are available that could be used. And also there are platforms, of course, where you could check a few things. Also the mission projects, they have already published a lot of interesting guidance documents with a lot of practical examples, how citizen engagement can be effective and how it can be done successfully. Also for Maria, this is another slide. Of course, you can come back to these slides, of course, anytime afterwards to see how, of course, she could then collaborate with the farmers, with the, of course, the communities, what kind of course, activities she could do, again, to co-create and then to co-validate, of course, her solution specifically. And then just to really peek into the guidance, that, of course, the Commission is not leaving us just alone. They have put together these codes of practices in all of the key steps of the knowledge valorization process. There is one for the management of the intellectual assets. There is one on the industry academia co-creation specifically. There's another one for the standardization, and a last one on citizen engagement as well. So absolutely go to this website and have a look at, of course, these goals of practices. They give you the proper guidance on all of these things. Everything, of course, is in a whole framework, right, of the policy. What is that? Contributing to the European research area, of course, and further developing it, right? So the whole policy agenda for 2025-2027 on the European research agenda, European research area, of course, is the whole background policy framework itself. Funding and investment, just to peek into, Alicia will introduce the key financial sources and the funding opportunities. I just wanted to highlight that within Horizon Europe, there were calls that were specifically financing projects that are supporting knowledge valorization. So these are just a peek into some of these calls, like fostering knowledge valorization through societal and cultural interactions. So those projects that were financed under these calls that you see, of course, listed here, will be giving you really good things. It will be giving you possibility for piloting. It will be giving you possibility to support your standardization. It will be giving you a toolbox for the IP management, licensing, and some other stuff. So definitely then go and see, of course, which projects were financed under these calls because they can give you additional specific support. And these will be the services and the platforms also, just as a peek into the list, of course, that Alicia will be introducing you.
Hello, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed your coffee break, our coffee break. And I am going to talk now about the funding programs and initiatives, Horizon Europe, and much more. So we start as soon as it allows me to pass the slide. Using the funding programs by the European Commission. Okay, the Horizon Europe. The Horizon Europe Framework Program for Research and Innovation can be found in this web page, note here, and is one of the main funding programs in Europe. Some examples of past calls on valorization are the following ones, but please remember that more are coming. For instance, fostering knowledge valorization through societal and cultural interaction. Experimentation and exchange of good practices for value creation. Piloting communities of expert facilitators to improve industry, academia, public sector. As you can see in these past calls, the interaction between academia, the origin of many development in industry, origin of other developments, and also the main stakeholder to take it to the market, and the public, the societal exchange are contemplated. Another one is boosting industrial symbiosis by standardization. This is very important, as we will see later, to establish a patron just to homogenize technology advances. Then there is a toolbox for efficient intellectual property licensing for market uptake and societal value. We will talk about intellectual property licensing and protecting later on. Now, the European Research Council have other interesting calls. For instance, now the e-receipt proof of concept grants are on and will finish this September. The proof of concept says, have you already received an RC grant for your frontier research project and now want to explore the commercial or societal potential of your work? The ERC proof of concept grant could be for you. As you can see on the right, it finishes on the 18th of September of this year. Which proposals are eligible? Those establishing proof of concept of an idea that was generated, and this is important, in the course of previous ERC funding project. The objective is to enable RRC funded idea to progress from groundbreaking research towards innovation. An idea can be very good, but it has to be put in a practical format, innovation. The proof of concept grant would help, among others, testing, experimenting, demonstrating, and validating the idea. Also, conducting research required to carry out the above activities and to address the weakness uncovered by them. Establishing viability, technical issues, and overall direction. Clarifying the intellectual property issues and knowledge transfer strategy. involving industrial partners to develop the product, societal or cultural organization, and policymakers or any other potential stakeholder in order to translate research results into innovation. And finally, assessing potential end users of the expected innovation. This is very important because a product may be needed not only for itself, but will need a certain political regulation for its implementation. Let's say we know all what's happening with the artificial intelligence, all the advancement, and how the European Union tries to regulate it. Advancement in biomedicine, which can imply for instance, treatment, immunological treatment or genetic issues can be regulated as well. So, how much are we talking about? Well, a lump sum of 150,000 euros for a period of 18 months. So normally, proof of concept activities should be completed within 12 months. However, in practice, to allow for this project that require more preparation time, which are the most, I may say, the agreements will be signed for 18 months. Remember that the next deadline is in September, and we must highlight that these kinds of calls open the way to the European Innovation Council Tech to Market program. We will talk about it later, but it aims to support innovative researchers in the transition from lab to market with free training provided by experienced mentors, experts, investors, and market representatives. And this has a lot to do with this WiderAdvance Facility project. Now we will talk about the funding programs under the European Innovation Council, which is one of the largest deep tech investors in Europe. It offers about 6 billion euros of support to start-up research and tech transfer. The European Innovation Council supports all stages from research and development to industry for game-changing innovation. It has, on one side, funding opportunities and an accelerator. Well, you can see a summary of funding programs and initiatives. The Pathfinder, the Transition, the Pre-Accelerator, the Accelerator, and the Step Scale Up. The one that will interest us more is the Transition, because, it's an intermediate stage, market readiness grants for preparing to enter the market, while the others are for very initial steps, or, for instance, to later stage, such as the scale up in industry. In any case, you can learn more about this in this link that I leave on the right about the funding opportunities given by this European Innovation Council. Well, its accelerator is quite interesting. I have put some information, what for, develop and scale up innovations with the potential to create or disrupt markets. Who can apply? Startups and small and medium enterprise. Intending to launch, individuals intending to launch one of these companies and go to the market. And what you get? The funding. There are grants and investments below 2.5 million euros, but up to 10 million of equity investment and another source of funding. So if you are in this medium period, I would advise strongly to go to this European Innovation Council funding. You can see that there is grant funding, a lump sum contribution below 2.5 million for innovation activities. That means the TRL 6.8, which Gabriela was talking about. This is almost ready to go to the commercial, pre-commercial stage to undergo trials. This grant funding should be completed within 24 months. Okay, this is for startups and small and medium enterprise with capacity to scale up. The investment component is to fill the gap for high-risk innovation to a stage where they can be fully financed by other investment, for instance, business angels and so on. It gives from 1.5 to 10 million euros. Well, higher amounts available in the next step scale up, but we are not talking about this. You have the information here anyway. The EIC acceleration challenges provided a lot of money as well. And the accelerator open is interesting for those projects that don't match the usual topics. So this accelerator is open to proposal in any field of the technology. And for this year, the total budget is almost 400 million euros. So it's a lot of money anyway. Another interesting European program which gives funds for capitalization is the Interreg program. Now, the Interreg program is for different European regions. As you can see here, this is Central Europe program. But there are many more. The Interreg programs are planned for European regions, but we must say that associated countries can participate as well. For instance, Interreg Atlantic is meant for Portugal, Atlantic Spanish and French regions, and Ireland. The Interreg MAC is aimed at Azores, Madeira, Canary Islands, and Cabo Verde, and third African parties. The Interreg Central Europe is intended for Poland, Austria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Slovenia, part of Germany, and Italy. And many other Interreg programs cover Europe. And there are also common Interreg Europe calls for all the countries in Europe. Therefore, the Interreg projects that promote research valorization also take into account regional features for their implementation. And this is a differentiation with other valorization calls. For instance, we have now closed in the Canary Islands one of such capitalization projects, the Interreg MAC second call capitalization. And I must say that the Interreg MAC is intended for Azores, Madeira, the Canary Islands here, Cabo Verde, and then a lot of African countries to promote Europe-Africa cooperation in critical areas. So the ones who participated in a previous Interreg project and have obtained result in this project, in this previous Interreg project, can apply to the capitalization one, which gives extra money to take this result, this commercial or capitalizable results to society or to the companies, to the market. Here is the research valorization page of the Interreg program and defines research valorization, but the important point is below, because in the Interreg, the focus is in commercialization of research results and entrepreneurship. You can download the manual from this page. So we go on to the following section, which is service and platform, the UU resources for valorization. There are many useful support services and platforms. Some of them are listed below, and then we will comment them one by one. For instance, the Knowledge Valorization Platform, the Horizon Results Booster, the Horizon Results Platform, the European Intellectual Property Help Desk, the Competence Center on Technology Transfer, the Small and Medium Enterprise Fund, and the Standardization Support in CEN and CIN Select. Well, we start with the Knowledge Valorization Platform. You have the link to this platform above here. So they start saying, great research, what now? Inspiring approaches to unlocking the market potential of scientific results. The Knowledge Valorization Platform is an online platform connecting players in Europe to turn research results into sustainable products and solutions. It provides best practices, thematic focus, guidance, and information on events, and this is very interesting. The booster is also a very interesting service, which provides tailor-made support to funded projects to maximize their impact and increase value creation. And this, in part, is related to what we will do in the WiderAdvance Facility, but with a different level of coaching. Now we have the Horizon Open portal, which has the Horizon Result Platform. I have prepared a video and I will try to connect. I don't know if it will work right now, but what it says will sum up. Okay. Will sum up some of the, well, doesn't seem that it doesn't work very well. So we go to the next one. The European Intellectual Property Help Desk. Well, now we have to take a breath. We have used all these services and platforms just to get, for instance, the development stage, get funds from stakeholders, and so on. But there is one point we should consider first. The intellectual protection, because the technology shouldn't be transferred before it's properly protected, as you know. If not, anybody could copy it and then it would lose value for you and for all the potential companies interested to license it. And the European IP Help Desk provides free first-line intellectual property support to European SMEs and beneficiaries of EU-funded research projects. What is more important, it can provide free advice when someone violates your intellectual property, because you can be a company with a product in the market, and then you realize that someone is breaking the patent laws and is commercializing the product elsewhere. What do? You can find some support here as well. So we go on to the Competence Center on Technology Transfer that is here. This CCTT offers expertise and service in technology transfer to the European Commission in the areas of capacity building, financing, and innovation ecosystems. But as you can see down, it provides also the service to a broader range of stakeholders. Now, this platform is very interesting. It has innovation ecosystems, financing, and capacity buildings. So it's very complete for different stages of the process of taking a product to the market. Now, the EU Intellectual Property Office, UIPO, launches different initiatives to help small and medium enterprise to protect their IP rights, because big companies also have issues with it. Many people will break the protecting laws around the world, but they have more media. But the small and medium enterprise don't have these resources, and this is very interesting if you want to know how to protect your results so that there are not gaps where someone else can infiltrate and also protect you on a later stage, and will give you very good advice to take your product not only on national level, but also on international level. Another platform interested is Zen and SenseElec. SenseElec is a variety of Zen for electricity and electronics. But what is important? This platform work on European standards. They try to make standards for different technologies. For instance, for drones or for our delivery bot, how big they can be, which capacity, can they work with electric batteries, can they work with different energy systems, which rules they have to comply with, and so on. It's important to create standards and to create also normatives. Who can get involved in the process of getting this standard ready? Well, logically, European industry partners, but also small and medium enterprises. And also societal stakeholders. For instance, if you are going to take a new vehicle in the market, the society can tell, I see this problem, I see this advantage, this new vehicle can go in the normal roads, can go in the highways or not. So this societal input is very interesting. Research and innovation. The researchers have a lot of things to say about this. For instance, when the nanotechnology was starting to be applied in the market, many researchers pointed out about the advantage and potential risk of the nano products. So efficient measures are being taken just to promote the good and minimize the side effects. So we have been thinking about who can be involved in all these processes. And we are devoting a special section to citizen engagement. We can see the normative of the European Commission here in this link provided above, but we can say that the European Commission takes very seriously the participation of the citizen in the process which takes a product to the market or to the society. For instance, I would give two examples, two different projects. The first one is the project ECOS. This is an image took in our symposium very recently. and which shows how this project have a citizen engagement section. Well, let's talk about ECOS, just to illustrate the example. There is an EU need to create national cancer mission hubs that involves all relevant stakeholders, including citizens in cancer-related policy dialogues. And ECOS, establishing cancer mission hubs, networks, and synergies, contributes by establishing and developing cancer mission hubs operating at national, regional, and local levels. And this is very interesting because one country can be different from the other. And in the same country, one region can be different from other region. So this project wants to take all this difference in consideration and then make tailor-made suggestions so that this fight against cancer can be improved and tailored to each partner, to each region. Well, Hugo Soares said in the declarations that you can see above something very interesting, that when you think about cancer, there is much more than just health and research. This project aims to get close to communities, involve them in cancer research, and then go to researchers, health professionals, and the EU Commission, and share the real needs. Well, by creating this positive feedback loop, we will be able to identify needs beyond classical ones. For instance, a very simple example, which he put up. In some regions, there is a problem because people do not go to a screening that could detect cancer on time. Why? And this project detected that some of the problem could be that the screenings were programmed for certain hours of the day when the people were working. In some regions, this didn't seem to be a problem because they had good transport services. But in other regions, they only had, let's say, 1 hour at lunchtime to go, and the bus service or the transport service was slow, not very frequent, and so on. So they said, if I go now, I won't come back to work on time. And if I go after work, this service would have closed. So I don't go. Solution, just to recommend that the service works after these hours, after normal extended duration of the service, or try to improve the transport. So this is an example in which asking people brings about real changes in the fight against cancer. You can see many more examples in this direction, Cancer Mission Hubs EU. Now we are talking about a second example, the Interaction Seeds project. This EU project, where science meets art, also goes for citizen engagement. And we can see different examples of this in the project web. But for instance, in RISE, there are collaborative approaches for societal issues. The Swedish cultural and higher education sectors were grappling with a sharp increase in real estate cost. Why? The interaction, inspired from traditional hackathons, created an immersive environment for a student to contribute to find the cause of the problem and potential solution, and then create suggestions for policy making. Then another initiative inside the same project was CLUB, raising awareness on artificial intelligence literacy. This took place in a council, the Kozani municipality, which established itself as a leader in sustainability and innovation. And the interaction aimed to support the local population in gaining valuable insights into artificial intelligence and its far-reaching impact on their daily lives. Not only how to use tools to improve their lives, but also on the dangers of artificial intelligence if we don't use it properly. So this involves citizen engagement and shared experience and then accumulating data so that policymaking can be made and so effective society action can take place. And you can see more success stories in this link, interaction seeds success stories. So there is time to talk and discuss ideas. And we are going to do that using a Mentimeter. So I'm giving the role to Gabriela so that the Mentimeter can take place. Thank you, Gabriela.
All right, so I go back. And again, we are asking you to go to menti.com and then use, of course, the same code itself. And then this would be the first question. What are the main challenges you face when scaling up your lab research? You can write any kind of challenge. Would it be legal, financial? You need more information, you need more knowledge, you need to develop certain skills. All of these challenges could be interesting for us to see, of course, how can we support further, of course, you and the other researchers, and also even, of course, the supporters, research advisors, or TT office members. Finances are always tricky, right? So lack of funding to cover the costs of prototyping and scale up, funding for the proof of concept project, limited access to industrial partners and test environments. There are also, of course, projects that could be helping you with this, or the digital innovation hubs, don't forget that. Or also the university industry network could be also helping, of course. Finding investors, lack of skills. Okay, all of these, of course, could be important. Just go ahead, yeah, let us know what else. Uncertainty about market demand and customer needs, of course. It would be important, of course, to check how to map, of course, that demand, how to look for the needs, how to assess those. Quality requirements. Technical complexity increases indeed, absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. These are a few important things, but yeah, let me know if there's anything else. I hope you don't hear the background noise behind me. Long timeline for certification, okay. Let's go to the next question. Let's see what you have used in the past, such as which EU financing instruments potentially you used. It's not necessarily just, of course, funding, but any other financial instruments or financial support from the EU. Which one do you know? Could be also, of course, the grants that Alicia listed, right? From Interact, from Horizon Europe, from other sources as well, but it could be also then the EU Invest, or there could be technical assistance support. It could be cascade funding from a project that you used. Maybe the EIT Kicks offered you something in the past. Okay, someone is exploring the opportunities. That's good. Interrecapitalization and also applying for POC. That's good. Okay, so there could be these options as well. Interesting. EIT Urban Mobility Accelerator. Okay, yeah, and then funding from Horizon Europe. Just giving you a few more seconds just in case there's anyone else. Maybe that's also an important sign. Yeah, not all of the opportunities have been fully, of course, used, and you could benefit from others. But how about any of those platforms potentially and tools to boost the research? Have you used any of these? Maybe the Horizon Results platform or the booster services. Someone is in the process, okay. Okay, someone published the results on the platform, Horizon Results platform, okay. I don't know if you, for example, continue the collaboration with anyone based on your publication on the platform. Just waiting for a few more seconds. Maybe you just got the knowledge about all of these platforms and tools. Okay, that's good. Yeah, the information, yeah, on the conference. That could be, of course, helpful indeed to go through all of these and see, of course, if you could use in the future these platforms. Yeah, we shared, of course, a lot of these in the past 2 hours now to you. All right. So how about citizen participation and citizen engagement? Have you been engaged in any of the projects or programs that would be having this? Maybe a mission project, maybe an Interact project, maybe, I don't know, in anywhere else, maybe Erasmus that you tried, or maybe a national one. Okay, we have someone who have in a variety of these, Interact, Horizon Europe, and also others, okay? Maybe the others are not so experienced, but if you have tried anything, okay, applied previously to Raptor. Right. Then we don't have so experienced participants, which is fine. Then let us know how can we help? What other kind of knowledge potentially you need? Would you like to hear in the future more about financing or more about these platforms and how to use them, or intellectual property related issues or citizen engagement, or anything else that we did not list and you potentially would miss? Help us to know how can we help in the future. All of them. Okay. All right. Anything specific? Maybe someone else? We had all of these interviews with other key stakeholders, of course, in our countries that are in the project together. And there was one interesting comment that it should be the leaders and decision makers of the universities and research organizations who should understand a lot more, of course, how to build up a strategy on an overall institutional level. That was also interesting. And then the researchers would need kind of a full list of sources, okay? If you want to know more about this, go here. If you want to understand this, go there. It's kind of a book of different links and, of course, resources where to find additional information. For someone, financing and citizen engagement is the most difficult one. Best platforms for high TRL, okay, results, like the Innovation Radar, I suppose, and others. Okay, managing joint IP. Yes, indeed, joint ownership is always, of course, an interesting thing, especially across different countries and different types of institutions. Okay, very good. How to involve citizens in co-design or the co-creation. Yeah, I would definitely check the recommendations coming from the those key mission projects that are supporting all of the other mission projects funded, like the Blue to Ocean. Now I'm not sure how exactly is the name of that one, but there are these very first projects that were financed under by the Commission in Horizon Europe. They are supporting all of the other mission projects with these guidance things, tools, and so on. Right, so that's it. Thank you very much for the attention and the feedback and the questions and so on. I stop sharing. Alisa, is there anything else we should say? You are muted.
I would like to thank everybody for the participation and the useful insight in the Mentimeter, and which was implemented by Gabriela. And we will take into account your suggestion in the next webinars. And you can find in the WiderAdvance Facility a variety of webinars about the subject that we commented in the Mentimeter. So please keep in contact, and we hope that you have liked these webinars and take place in the next ones. And Gabriela, if you want to add something, or
thank you very much.
add something.
Have a good summer, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good summer.